momentum going for Tonga. But yeah, it just depends on what happens when everyone turns up.
Yeah. Samoa next on the agenda, actually. Samoa men 42, Cook Islands men 12. Matt Speakman got in touch. What did Matt have to say?
Yeah, so Matt said Samoa looked really good. Samoa looked really good, especially if they can add Staggs and Tupou. Staggs was playing for them, wasn't he? Staggs was playing for Samoa. Staggs is Tongan. Anyway, Staggs and Tupou. I'm pleased for the Cook Islands getting on the score sheet after going so close so many times, but they're really going to struggle in that World Cup group.
Look, it's an easy thing to confuse. If they've got an S at the start of the name, you think Samoa. We've covered that already.
I got confused too, but Staggs played 5'8" for Tonga. I was confused there. But definitely there's a lot of Samoans. I think Paul might have actually put it together on Twitter there, Paul Mack, put together the players who could possibly play for Samoa. And who were playing State of Origin. There's quite a lot of them. I mean, you've got Junior Bolo. I can't remember the other ones that were in there because I remember the Parramatta guy. But there's some real good talent that just didn't play in this game. A lot of the guys,
the scoreline on this one felt a bit harsh on the Cook Islands, which was a patched together Cook Islands side, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
If we're being honest about it. And other than the first 15 minutes and the couple of interception tries in the last 15 minutes, it was a game that was about 3 scores to 2.
Yeah.
I know you can't discount half an hour of the game, but the middle part of the game, they were really competitive, considering the standing between the two sides. One side was full of players that have played NRL in the last year or two, and the other side was full of players who've not even necessarily played top reserve grade in the last year or two.
Yeah, there was some guys from probably the third tier and things like that you'd call. I mean, the Cook Islands will be... I'm not so worried about them. I think they will be better. It's just unfortunate. These sort of... There's still quite a few guys, I think, in Super League who are from Cook Islands as well. So I think there's a chance. I just think Samoa are maybe starting to reach a bit of potential. And there's been some really good players, like some younger guys who've got a bit of a go. But I mean, like we were saying, there's a lot of guys who played. I mean, there's a lot of the guys who are in the Penrith side, who are in the New South Wales side that are Samoan. And if you can convince them all to play for Samoa, I think they might be a real chance. So, like to go very far in that competition.
I mean, I would say I wasn't scared of this Samoa side from an England point of view, but the potential Samoa side come October is going to be different, like you say. PNG men played Fiji. 24-14 this one finished. Paul Mac _78 said, the best game of the weekend. Fiji have unearthed a superstar in their fullback, Sunia Taruva. Lachlan Lamb and Nixon Putt strong for the Cummels. If Tonga don't turn up, it won't surprise me if the Cummels shock them in October. Yeah, and this is classic PNG, isn't it? They can raise themselves. The sum of their parts is the team is greater than the sum of the parts individually. And PNG have got a couple of players to add into this side, haven't they? You know, Nenny McDonald and Reece Martin, for example, are playing over here, aren't they? But I thought the halfbacks in attack and defence for PNG were exceptional. And whereas Fiji, obviously, the fullback was great. I really enjoyed this one. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, no, this is a great game. And I think what people have kind of fallen asleep on PNG a little bit because they don't have the NRL stars, if you know what I mean. Like, there's not as many of them. Because a lot of people like to go, look how many great NRL players can play for Fiji and even the other ones we talked about. But what they're not realising is that most of this PNG team plays together every week for the Hunters. So even though they're playing in Queensland Cup, and you'd argue that's a truly second tier competition, the experience they're getting playing with each other all the time and forming that combination is making them a stronger side. And if you just add a few parts, a few bits of quality around them, they could really shock a few teams. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, outside of the fullback, Fiji were, I think, a bit disjointed, whereas PNG were really together. But it's the hits they put on. I mean, ever since like Menzieri got the name the jukebox back in the 2008 World Cup, was it? Ever since then onwards, you just look at some of these heavy-shouldered PNG centres and second rowers. But in this game, it was like the little white halfback was putting in massive hits on the most rampaging back row forward in the NRL and stopping him dead and really winding him up, didn't he? Kickout was frustrated by the defence that was being put on by PNG. I think both those PNG halfbacks would be really good shouts for Hull FC to pick up as a replacement for Reynolds till the end of the season. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I think they're both. Well, at least one of them's available. I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly sure Lamb's not wanted. Labour. I'm not sure what his situation is, but he's not playing first team anyway. Actually, after this game, a lot of the guys are like, "How is he not playing NRL?" And I just don't think that it just hasn't worked out for him. So look, he could be really good, and he's not that old. He's still quite young, so it's probably not that's a pretty good shout actually.
So from one excellent game to another very excellent game, but it ended up one-sided. The New South Wales Blues male side 44, the Queensland Maroons male side 12, a spanking by the Blues. Do you want to give us the first of the fan reviews?
Yeah, so Matt Speakman, Queensland got rolled in this one. Yellow card was the decider because it was very even before that. Maroons just had to expend too much energy for that period and never recovered. Blues got good value for their heavy win and have to be favourites for Game 3 despite it being away. No,
Pop the Viking said a close first half before a New South Wales masterclass in the second half, giving them a well-deserved victory. I'm banking that you enjoyed this one, David.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I enjoy international football way more than I enjoy the State of Origin, and I don't care about New South Wales as much because, as Queenslanders say, New South Wales just don't get Origin. So, but look, I enjoy watching the game, but I wouldn't care if either side won as much. I'm not that devoted to New South Wales. It's because when you look at New South Wales team, it's like watching all the players from all the other teams that you don't like and all the players you don't like playing for a team you're supposed to like because they're wearing a colour. And it just doesn't work for me. It works somewhat more as Australia, but I tend to kind of just enjoy the spectacle of it. And it was a great game to watch. It was amazing things that happened.
Great atmosphere as well, considering it was over in Perth, I thought, too.
Yeah, Perth is more of a rugby league town than people realise it is. And it's just a shame that we didn't stay there when Super League finished, because if we had kept Perth around, I think they would be devoted rugby league people by now. But like there's a lot of kind of expat South Africans who like rugby and don't care whether it's rugby union or league. There's a few expat UK people around as well.
Yeah, I know some people.
There's a few people from other states. Yeah, so like it's an area where, if we maybe put a team there, it might be a good idea, but I'm not getting into that debate today.
No.
But yeah, look.
What did you make of the actual action then? Who stood out for you for the Blues?
I run as part of the hypothetical. We've got a Hyper M's, which is like an NRL Daily M equivalent. And the guys who were in that, we basically voted Nathan Cleary the best player. I couldn't really argue with that. It was
big turnaround for him because he was really criticised after the first Origin game. But in this game, he was outstanding. And those back-to-back tries very close to each other, that sealed it, didn't it? Yeah,
and it was kind of once again, I know I talk about middles a lot, but the middles kind of held their own a bit better this time. It was in the last game, it was fairly tight until they kind of Queensland brought Carrigan and Lindsay Collins on, and they kind of got on top. And that's how Queensland ended up winning, and New South Wales just didn't get the chances. This time, it didn't matter when Carrigan came on because New South Wales were well on top. I know Matt said, the yellow card made a difference, but I mean, there was no other option to yellow carding. There was like 6 in a row. And it was, I mean, I think even without there being 6 in a row, I think the amount of time he was just laid all over that play the ball, he should have got binned anyway. So
yeah,
I know they were all crying about it, but
that's because that's what the commentators do. They cry about cards in Australia. It's but then they cry if the referee doesn't take charge of the game. And really, New South Wales, Queensland, they were playing spoiler tactics. They were spoiling it by there was 6 again, then penalty, then 6 again, then penalty. It was too many. It had to be punished.
Oh, of course, yeah. And look, I think Queensland were kind of falsely in the game for a while there. And once the kind of shackles came off a little bit, once New South Wales got a bit of a roll, I just don't think they were ever going to. When we all saw it, they went through them so easily by the end. They did lose their fullback. Ponga ended up having to go up, and Munster had to go to fullback, and that did change things too. But
I think the game was probably just about gone at that point anyway, but it did hamper any chance of sort of a miraculous comeback. I do agree, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I will take issue to New South Wales going in as favourite. I don't think we should ever go in as favourite when we're playing in Queensland on the decider.
I don't think they can be a favourite. This was a big margin of victory, but we talked about some of the factors, being a man down and having some in-game injuries and stuff like that. And also, I just think the game was gone. So they didn't put as much in then. There's no favourites in this game. It's totally up for grabs. It's very exciting.
Yeah, that'll be a great game. And I'm looking forward to it.
Who do you think is going to win it?
Look, I believe Queensland's probably going to win. I just think that there's something. If New South Wales play to potential, they probably should win it. But I think that what's going to happen is there's this talk about, obviously, Latrell Mitchell's back for South this weekend, so he's probably going to come into the centres, which means they're going to have to try and work out who goes where. And I have a feeling that they're going to make the wrong decision on that.
They can't drop Burton after his performance in this game, though, can they?
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you don't drop Burton, what do? You put him. For some reason, Freddie decides that he wants someone on the bench. He put Talakai on the bench for this one. He wants like another back on the bench, and I have a worry that he's going to drop Talakai, put Burton onto the bench, put Latrell Mitchell in, who might be a little bit underdone as well. And like Burton's not going to really get a chance to come on and do anything. But I don't know. It could go either way. I mean, New South Wales are so dominant in this game that they probably should, win. But I just feel like Queensland will. They've had that loss. They're back at home. They can galvanise themselves, and they can put in one big performance to win this thing. And they did it. I mean, I think 3 years ago it was the same situation. I think we went to Perth, and New South Wales won by 40 points or something, and then we turned around the next time, and Queensland won to the decider at Suncorp, and when they shouldn't have won. So it feels like it may just happen again.
Okay, no other podcast in the rugby league world, and there's many out there. None other will segue from the Blues versus the Maroons to Cottingham Tigers versus East Hull under 12s, but that's what we're doing. Joshua's granddad was watching this one. He said, converted breakaway try and conversion gave the Tigers an early 6 points before 2 tries put East 8-6 up as halftime approached. An East forward objected to a tackle and a major brawl started. Words from the ref calmed things down. In the second half, tries put East 16-6 up until their fullback objected to a tackle. Players running in and punches thrown. Ref stood his ground whilst players split. He then displayed his first ever red cards. So the young referee in that under-12s match was taking control of things, it sounds like. Then the Halton... He sounds like an excellent referee. I think he's very, very good. Yeah, certainly a prospect for the future. Halton Hornets Under 13s girls versus Warrington Wolves girls. Pop the Viking got in touch. He said, Halton started with an early try before Warrington scored 2 tries to make it 10-4. A try just before halftime for Halton made it 10-8. The second half was a tough battle with defences on top. Then 2 tries from Grace, Paul's daughter, Grace, and a further try for Halton made the score 26-10. With the last play of the ball, Grace got the ball from dummy half and made a run through the defence and scored her 3rd of the game. Proud dad moment. Yes, well done, Grace, on your hat-trick. Absolutely exceptional stuff there. And I'm sure a Widnes fan absolutely fucking loved being the player of the match and scoring a hat-trick against the Warrington Wolves. Exactly. Excellent stuff. Absolutely what we love to hear on the Super League pod, throwing all of those fan reviews on those big rep games and together with those really, big community junior games as well, because every rugby league is there for us to enjoy. Okay, we're done with our other results section now. We're going to move into the predictions for next week's Super League game. right, David, it's round 7